Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars. Topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
What's going on, guys? You're listening to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Foreman, and I got some interesting information for you guys today. I want to start out by talking about ESPN and ESPN's latest power rankings for the NBA. I also want to talk about some of the NBA's young players, okay, and which couple of those young players I would like to start my team with. I also want to talk about, this year's NBA Finals and some of the best possible matchups that we might see, because like I've said before, it's pretty much wide open as far as, the teams who actually have a chance. It's pretty much wide open, and I want to talk about some of the best matchups we just might see in this year's NBA Finals. And then make sure you stick around for my very last segment, the very end of the show, because I'm going to talk about LeBron. And if this year is in fact, his last best chance to win a championship, there was an article by Yahoo Sports I want to talk about, and is this year LeBron's last real chance at winning a championship? I want to talk about it. I'm interested also in what you guys have to say, so make sure you leave me a comment or a review with your opinion on that for sure. I'm probably going to end up posting a thing on Twitter about this, a possible thread about which teams, which matchups might be the very best. So don't go anywhere. Make sure you stick around for all the segments of the show. But like I talked about, I want to start out with ESPN's latest NBA power rankings. Okay, this year's NBA rankings are the latest NBA rankings from ESPN, because like you guys know, if you keep up with ESPN and the information they usually put out, they kind of pump out these power rankings. I don't want to say prematurely, but they kind of make them somewhat regularly. And they did one not too long ago. I talked about it, at least the odds to win the finals. And then they've released power rankings since then. This is their latest one. It came out about two to 3 days ago. But let's talk about it. Number one, they have the Milwaukee Bucks, number one team in the entire NBA. They got the Los Angeles Clippers listed at number 2, Los Angeles Lakers at number 3, and then the Toronto Raptors, number 4, Houston Rockets making an appearance at number 5, and then kind of dropping down, in my opinion, number 6, Celtics, and 7 were like the 76ers. I think 8th was the Denver Nuggets. I didn't memorize the entire top 10, but that's the gist of it right there. Importance right for you guys, though. The most important thing you guys need to know. They have the Milwaukee Bucks at number 1, Clippers at 2, Lakers at 3. So Bucks stayed at 1. Clippers moved up to number 2 since their last ranking. Lakers dropped from 2 to 3. So they simply flip-flopped the Los Angeles teams. I understand why the Milwaukee Bucks are at number 1. I don't want to say it makes entire sense, because I do think the Clippers are the best team in basketball right now, so I don't think the Milwaukee Bucks by any means should be number one, but they have the number one seed, or the number one record in the entire NBA. Technically, they do have the number one seed in the entire NBA. Then obviously number one in the East. So I believe, I don't know if they have the best defense, but it's at least, I know, in the top 5 in defense. I believe they have one of the best offense, at least we know when you're ranking them. So they have one of the best offenses in all of basketball as well. They're led by the MVP in Giannis Antetokounmpo. So yeah, it makes sense that the Bucks are at number one. However, I don't necessarily agree. I think the Clippers should probably be at that number one spot, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. I want to start out by talking about the Houston Rockets, okay? And I think they had one of the biggest jumps, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, okay? So in the prior rankings, the Houston Rockets were at number 9. Like I said when I was going through their rankings, they're now at number 5. I don't really agree with them being number 5. However, I don't agree with them being at number 9 either. I think they'd be pretty good at the 6th spot. I'm pretty comfortable slotting them there. I'm not quite comfortable putting them at number 5. Especially because, with the trade of Capella, it started out very well. I've been very high on, how they played since that trade happened. I think Westbrook is becoming more of a leader on the team, which he needs to be if they're going to be a threat. But the biggest thing that upsets me with this Houston Rocket team, makes me doubt them, not put them so high on my list, is gotta be because, right before the season stopped, they lost 4 out of their 5 games. Okay, so dropped 4 out of the last 5. They really were having some issues lineup-wise, chemistry-wise, meshing everything. Are they taking too many three-point shots? Because obviously there are a lot more three-point shots since Capella left the floor, being as spread as ever. However, Westbrook doing somewhat the opposite of that, going to the rim more than ever, taking less and less three-point shots, because we know that wasn't necessarily his game, but that was really what he had to do with Capella clogging up the paint. So it makes sense to have them in the top 6 or 7. I don't agree with them being all the way down at number 9, but to have them at number 5 over the Celtics, I don't agree with that, especially because they lost the last 4 out of the 5. Celtics were doing pretty well, kind of clicking almost on all cylinders before the hiatus started. So, yeah, I wouldn't put them at number 5. I put them at number 6. I am very comfortable putting the Celtics up at number 5. I think that the Celtics are probably a better team right now, when you're comparing them to the Houston Rockets. A better defense. I think it's a more sustainable offense, especially in the playoffs when you're not getting a whole lot of free throw calls, free throws. So that's not necessarily something the Celtics have. They have a lot of guys who can create their own shot, doesn't rely on the three-point shot necessarily. And again, they have a very good defense. I'm very comfortable in saying, like I said, they're top 5 in both offense and defensive. So a very steady team. So I would put the Celtics over the Rockets. I also think the Celtics are better than the Raptors, so I would also put the Celtics above the Raptors. Even though the Celtics are 3 games back, it does make sense. They have the Raptors at the number 4 spot, and they have the Celtics back at number 6. But again, my biggest question is, how are the Rockets ahead of the Celtics? Is it just because of those 2 guys, Harden and Westbrook? It must just because of that, the star power, which kind of proves to you in the NBA how much star power can do, at least in this sense, Like I said, I prefer the Celtics to the Raptors and the Rockets. I do, however, want to keep Toronto in the top 5. I wouldn't boot them like I would the Rockets. Yes, so I guess you can say I'm taking the Raptors over the Rockets. I like, the Rockets are a pretty deep team. However, the Raptors are a very deep team, the reigning champions. I really like Siakam. I really like Van Fleet. Kyle Lowry has been playing very well. He's been impressing me for a guy who somewhat wrote him off after losing to LeBron year after year. So he's been impressing me. And I like Toronto a lot, reigning champion, and I like their game plan, their offense, their chemistry. They know pretty much what they are, besides some small injuries they've had, but they pretty much know who they are. So I would move the Raptors also above the Rockets. I'd keep them above the Rockets. An interesting thing I want to talk about, though, I said the 76ers, if you heard me, were ranked 7th on this list. 7th is pretty good. That's around where I would honestly put them as well, 7 or 8. But just off of this year. But where they were ranked is kind of the jump out thing, the thing that jumps out to me, the thing that makes me want to look deeper on this, focus in on this, is that they were 13th before on their last ranking, and then they go from 13th all the way up to 7th. Okay, so they jump from 13th to 7th, almost, doubling, their win value, I want to say, their rank. Okay, and I don't necessarily see why. Is it because we were unsure on if Simmons and Embiid were both coming back in good shape? What was the question here, and what was the conclusion of the move? What was like? Yeah, they're 13th last time. We got to put them all the way up to 7th now. What happened from the last ranking to now? I can tell you nothing. So I don't necessarily understand that. Is it just because we think Ben Simmons is coming back 100%? Maybe that is worth doubling their rank. Not really sure. I think they're still kind of finding their lineups, still kind of meshing their players. The Al Horford move, I'm not a fan of that move whatsoever. The article from ESPN from the power rankings talked about Al Horford and really talked about, how he hasn't meshed with Embiid or Simmons, and that really stood out to me. I completely agree with that. So they are still finding their lineups. What's his name? Tobias Harris has come out and said the reason they haven't done so well this year is because of the team chemistry. He knows that himself, and I don't think it's necessarily a good thing when one of your better players are coming out talking about the bad team chemistry all year. Yes, he did say they need to flip it around, but I don't know. I didn't get the best vibe from that, and I don't see the jump from 13 to 7 here necessarily. But like I also said, Clippers moved from number 3 to 2. Okay, they simply flip-flopped with the Lakers. I agree with that. And it's simply because of that Clipper roster. They should be 100%, especially Paul George and Kawhi, guys who have been preaching, the load management, the new load management, the new term. A lot of people don't like that term, but it's a somewhat new term, and that's something they've been doing all season. The main stars, like I said, in Kawhi and Paul George, should be 100% healthy, and they've also added players like Marcus Morris, Reggie Jackson. Right before the season started, they haven't necessarily had time to mesh those players, which is somewhat of a drawback. But they've had time. I guarantee over this hiatus, they have been talking to their team how they like to play, and they've had the game plan, all the plays, so they know the roster. It's not like they have to be thrown into it right away. They simply haven't played together. That is the most important thing, simply playing together, on the court. That's more important. You can know all the plays and stuff, but you have to play with the guys to build the chemistry. Yes, I know, but he has the playbook. He's had that for some months now. They've been playing. They all should be healthy. They just need to build some more chemistry, which is, the limit on this roster, basically. The limit on them right now is they haven't played together, which is pretty scary. So I think the best is yet to come for the Clipper team, and I agree with them being ranked over the Clippers. I don't really agree with them being under the Bucks, but like I said, I get it. Lakers fall down to number 3, probably because of the Avery Bradley opt-out. He was the Lakers' best guard defender. He was arguably their best guard on the entire team. I think he was. And they're losing him. They just get not a risky move, but a little bit of a risky move in J.R. Smith. Obviously a guy who knows LeBron, so in that sense it's not a risky move. But, you lose one of your best defenders, if not your best defender, and, the best defenders, Anthony Davis and LeBron. But after that, it's Avery Bradley. You lose him. You lose some offense. I mean, we remember that Laker-Clipper game. He drops 24 points and like 6 threes, plays some good defense. So that's shouldn't be undervalued. We'll see how much that hurts. That's probably why they go from 2 to 3. I'm okay with it. I still like them over the Bucks. They still are getting Dwight Howard. The only next question for the Lakers is, who's going to start? Who is going to take the starting position over Avery Bradley? That's the only real question. Besides that, they know what they are. They know what to do. Let me give you my top 5. I got to put the Clippers at number 1, Lakers at 2, Bucks at 3, Celtics at 4, Raptors at 5. That's my top 5. Clippers, Lakers, Bucks, Celtics, Raptors. Okay, that's my top 5. Let me know what you guys think about that. And on that note, let me know let me know what you guys think about that. But I'm going to take a quick break. When I come back, I want to talk about the NBA's young players. Okay, not necessarily the ones who are going to star in this postseason. We'll see. But the young players and which ones I would take on my team. If I was starting my own team, which young player would I want to start that with? I want to talk about that coming up next. Don't go anywhere.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, guys, welcome back. Like I said before the break, I want to talk about the NBA's up-and-coming, the best up-and-coming. Before I talk about the ones, the one in specific I would want to start my team with, I just want to start out by, naming some of you guys as my favorite up-and-coming players, Ben Simmons, Karl Anthony Towns, I like him a lot. Jason Tatum, St. Louis guy. I'm from St. Louis, so I got some love for Jason Tatum. I think he's one of the especially one of the NBA's up and coming guys. So Jay Tatum, shout out to St. Louis. Zion Williamson, love Zion. Luka Doncic, Luka's awesome. Trae Young. Ice Trae, Atlanta, we know what he's doing. They're not really translating too many wins, but, all-star this year. So Trae Young, he's establishing himself, all-star point guard. Devin Booker, snubbed of the all-star team this year, no doubt. I recognize what he's doing out there in Phoenix, even though he's not getting all that much recognition, probably because of that win and loss column. But Donovan Mitchell, another guy I like a lot in Utah. He's a big part of that team getting them to the playoffs after losing their franchise guy in Gordon Hayward. Not really something people talk about all that much. They lost their franchise guy in Gordon Hayward, a guy who's been there for many years, and then get a guy in Donovan Mitchell the next year, kind of luck out, and he basically carries them, wills them to the playoffs. Obviously, they had a very good team. Rudy Gobert helped a lot. They had Joe Ingles. They had a good team, but in large part to do with Donovan Mitchell, which is, I think, an underrated fact. I'm happy he was an all-star, so I'm happy he's been recognized as that. But, John Morant, also another guy I like a lot. In my opinion, he's my rookie of the year this year, so I love Ja, what he's doing for Memphis, willing them into the 8th spot so far. Super impressive. Love Ja. Going from Murray State also, that's not too far from me. I had a couple of friends that went there and watched him play, so super cool. I love Ja. I love what he's doing in Memphis. I think he's a great and definitely an up-and-coming player, probably going to be an all-star next year despite being in the tough Western Conference. But like I said, the future is very bright. I have a few guys that I like more than others, okay? It's got to be Luka Doncic, okay? Zion, Jason Tatum. Those are my 3 guys I like a little bit more than the others, okay? Just a little bit more. And when you compare them to guys like Ben Simmons, okay? Ben Simmons has, a great player, an all-star. However, doesn't have as much to his game that I think these other players might have. Very similar to Zion, a down low type player can pass, or Ben's a better passer, but Zion's more electrifying, definitely. But Zion definitely doesn't have a better outside shot though than Ben. That's my point. Ben lacking that outside shot, which is much needed in today's NBA. Karl Anthony Towns simply hasn't done much in the win-loss column ratio. I was pretty disappointed or upset. I was pretty upset with. I wasn't thrilled with his first playoff appearance against Houston. I think Houston swept them. Where I thought Timberwolves had some interesting matchups and at least could get a game or two. But I was disappointed. I don't think he played as well as I think he can in that playoff series. And this past year we haven't seen a whole lot of win-loss. He didn't play too much, but still, I want to see a little more out of him before I put him on ahead of these guys. You know what I'm saying? No disrespect to either of those guys, but I just have to see a little more from those guys before I put them ahead of Luka, Zion, and Jason Tatum. But I like all the players I named. I don't want to diss or put any bad opinions on any one of them. But I can't put any one of them above of Luka, Zion, Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum, like I said, a St. Louis guy for me. When I was going, in high school, even. Sorry, one second. When I was in high school, I remember him going and playing down the road, about 20 or 10 minutes down the road from me, playing in a high school basketball tournament. So I remember I didn't get a chance to go watch him play, but a lot of people I know did. It was packed in those places, and so a guy that I've known for a long time, and then right away a guy kind of slipped to number 3 in the draft despite being the best person, or arguably the best guy from that draft. So he slips to number 3 to the Celtics, but at some point, at that point at least, none of us really saw the Jason Tatum that we see now coming necessarily. He kind of came out of nowhere. Not came out of nowhere, but what we saw from Duke is not necessarily what we've seen from him in the NBA, which is amazing. And one of the best up-and-coming scorers in the NBA. And players, like I said, taking LeBron's 7 games, super impressive. He was in large part to do with that. He's been an all-star. Didn't necessarily mesh with Kyrie. We see him being, no doubt, the leader of the Celtics this year. But like I said, I like him. Luka, Zion, we know, is somewhat of the up-and-coming face of this league. I talked about it on one of my last podcasts. He's, the 2K cover now. But there's one guy, like I said, that I would probably take before or over the other two, and that's my guy Luka Doncic. He's my number one guy going forward. Yes, I have him having the slight edge to Tatum and Zion. Okay, who knows what Zion could turn out to be. The only question on him is health, and is he going to stay healthy 100%? Is he going to get that outside jump shot? But there isn't really a question on Luka. The only big question is can he play high-level defense as well as, the high-level offense we've already seen from him. We know he can get rebounds and assists and score. Can he play? He's gotten some steals, too. We know he can steal this. We know he can get some steals, but he's averaging a steal a game. But not necessarily a defensive threat, a guy you can kind of take advantage of sometimes on the defensive side. So, that's the only knock on him. Besides that, and he still can. I believe he can play defense if he. I think he almost tires himself out on the offensive side. But he is a lot of Dallas's offense, and they have some other defensive pieces to make up for him. He's 21 years old. Okay, in his second season, averaging 28 points, 9 rebounds, almost 10, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, and a steal. 21 years old. Okay, he's my age in his second season in the NBA. Okay, he's my age. 28 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, second season in the NBA. 6th in the league in points per game. 4th in the league in assists per game. He's top 20 in rebounds, and he's a 6'7" shooting guard, small forward, point guard. He kind of plays the point guard a lot. 8th in offensive win shares. He's 4th in PER. And listen to this, okay? People who love that triple double stat, my Russell Westbrook fans are going to love this. Luka is number 1 in triple doubles this year overall, not just young player. He's number 1 in triple doubles this year. So from my Russell Westbrook guys out there, you gotta hop on this Luka Doncic train while you can. He's 3rd in this year's MVP voting as well. Okay, 3rd in this year's MVP voting, just behind LeBron James and Giannis Antetokounmpo, 2 guys who have already solidified themselves as all-star caliber guys for the next, or we know LeBron, but at least Giannis, for the next decade. So Luka's right there with him. I would probably take Luka over Giannis as well. I don't even consider Giannis in this list because he's not an up-and-coming guy. He's already solidified. Once you win an MVP, you're not an up-and-comer anymore. So Luka is my up-and-coming guy. I don't think I can, and if you guys can put Luka ahead, I'll do a poll. Who do you guys like better, Zion, Luka, Jason Tatum? Zion might win just because of popularity. Off of solely playing what we've seen so far, I have Luka having the edge to both of those guys because, like I said, I think he can kind of do it all. The Mavericks are ranked 10th. And, the power rankings I talked about in my last segment, the Mavericks are ranked 10th in that power ranking, in large part to do with Luka Doncic and how he's playing this year. Like I said, 3rd in MVP voting, 4th in PER, 1st in triple doubles. He's 6th in points per game at 28 a game, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. Second season, okay, 7th in the West. We know how deep the Western Conference is, and from the 2nd seed to the 7th seed, there's a 4-game difference. Okay, so let's say he goes off in the 8 seeding games. He could be the number 2 seed for all we know. Probably not going to happen, but he's definitely going to be in the playoffs. He is the reason the Dallas Mavericks are in the playoffs this season. So I have him right now ahead of these guys. I think he's a really underrated guy. I was talking to some people in my family, and they didn't even know who he was. So that starts it off. He is an underrated guy. I'm interested to see the results of the poll that I post. I was thinking about doing it on the best teams, but now I'm more interested, honestly, on what you guys think. Who is the best player up and coming? Is it Zion, Jason? Out of those 3, those are my 3 guys. Who out of those 3 are you guys taking? Zion, I understand that. Jason Tatum, I'm not really going to argue on that either. Or Luka Doncic, the guy I'm kind of rooting for right now. He's also last year's Rookie of the Year, really deserving of that, beating out Trae Young. It was somewhat of an intense battle, but Luka, a very clutch guy who won more games than Trae did, had basically just as bad a team as Trae did. Neither of them played very well and won too many games. Luka and his team had the edge. Luka won Rookie of the Year. I was all for that. But, going forward for Luka, I see MVPs in this guy's career, okay? Like I said, third this year in MVP voting, behind just Giannis and LeBron. If he can do what he's doing this year, next year, and just will his team, the Mavericks, maybe into that number 2 or number 1 spot, he could very well be number 1 in the MVP voting. It really depends how well your team is doing, even though it's more of a personal stat, one guy stat. It still has to do with your team. And if that Maverick team was a number 1 seed in the Western Conference in a couple of years, I think that's going to propel him even further in the MVP discussion, 2, maybe 1. So I see him winning an MVP, if not multiple MVPs in his career. His style of play, not necessarily I don't want to knock a guy like Trae Young, but we see him playing, averaging a whole bunch of points and a whole lot of assists this year, all-star, but we see the Atlanta Hawks being one of the worst teams in the league this year. So I don't want to say Trae Young's style of play doesn't translate to winning, because he can win a lot of games. He's a clutch player, has won a lot of games for the Hawks, or some games for the Hawks. But it's no doubt to me that Luka's style of play, how he plays, translates to winning. Has the Mavericks 7th in the West, ranked 10th overall. Like I said, that's a tough thing to do. And Zion has only played 19 games in this league. I hate to be the guy to hate on the up-and-comer, but he's played 19 games. Let's see how he does this postseason. Let's see how he does next season, and then maybe I can put him ahead of guys I've seen do it for years and years now, multiple years, in Luka and Jason Tatum. I'm comfortable in taking both Jason Tatum and Luka over Zion. I think they have less questions over them at this point. So I'm comfortable in taking, Jay Tatum, Luka Doncic over Zion. I think Zion's right there behind him. If we'll see what he does in this Orlando seeding games, and if he makes it into the playoffs, like I think he will. Let's see how he plays. Maybe he can, swing my vote for him as far as on this list, and maybe he goes ahead of those guys. We'll see how it comes back. But right now, like I said, Luka Doncic has got to be my guy going forward. What he's done, I think he's going to continue to do it in the 8 seeding games. We'll see. I think he's probably going to have to play the Clippers. If he doesn't have to play the Clippers in the first round, I'm interested to see if he can get out of the first round. I wouldn't bet against him. Like I said, multiple MVPs going for him. He's my guy I would start a team with. I'm taking Luka Doncic right now. Let me know what you guys think. I'm going to definitely post a poll about this on Twitter, so go check out the GSMC basketball Twitter page and vote on that poll tomorrow, or today. Vote on it today. I got Luka. I'm very interested to see what you guys think yourselves. But coming up next, I'm going to talk about this year's NBA Finals. Okay, this year's NBA Finals, and since it's almost as wide open as ever, I want to talk about some of the best and possible matchups that we might see. So don't go anywhere. I'll be breaking that down next.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to Extreme Cage Fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, guys. GSMC Basketball Podcast. Like I said before the break, let's talk about this year's NBA Finals, the thing we all can't wait for, at least the thing I can't wait for. It's going to be not until the middle to end of September that we see this, but nonetheless, I'm excited for it, and I want to start talking about some of the possible matchups that we might see in the Orlando Finals, you know. And it's pretty easy. I think there are 3 teams from the East and 3 teams from the West that have a shot to make it to the finals, okay? I think there are 3 from each that I think have a shot. And out East, it's the Bucks, the Celtics, and the Raptors, okay? Bucks, Celtics, Raptors. In the West, Lakers, Clippers, Rockets. Lakers, Clippers, Rockets are the 3 teams out west I think have a shot to make it to the finals. So what I want to do now is, out of those 6 teams, talk about the different interesting, at least the interesting matchups from those. I'll save you from some of the rather boring ones, but in my opinion, the boring ones, and I'll talk about 5, maybe 6. We'll see if I see. This is going to be a little bit of a lengthier one, but I want to talk about the cool matchups because, if you listen, there are a whole lot of cool matchups that could potentially happen, and I'm almost cool with almost any of them, okay? I'm going to start out with the one that might not be the most interesting to some people. Nonetheless, I find very interesting. That would be Rockets against the Bucks. Harden against Giannis. Basically the 2019 MVP race, but we see it in the finals. We see it at the highest stage possible. And if you remember, there's some drama, a little bit of beef between Giannis and Harden. After that MVP race, Harden obviously deserved or thought he deserved the MVP, averaging 35 points per game, something no one has done since Kobe, Michael, Will. So Giannis was also deserving of the MVP. Harden was as well. Giannis ended up winning. Giannis has done nothing, honestly, but take shots at Harden since then. If you remember the All-Star team draft this year, Giannis had the chance to pick Harden. It was Harden or Kemba Walker, which we all know Harden is a better player than Kemba. Giannis then said, "No, I'll take someone who's going to pass me the ball. So I want Kemba instead of James Harden." So that's an insult right there. It's an insult to take Kemba over James Harden as well. So 2 jabs right there at James Harden. Harden responded saying, he didn't necessarily know why these shots were being thrown at him, and he didn't really know why. But either way, they got beef. And another interesting aspect of this, not just the Harden-Giannis aspect, is the different styles of play of the 2 teams. Houston, a whole lot of 3-point shots. That's what they're relying on, not a whole lot of defense, honestly. Bucks, a very even team on offense and defense. They do it on both sides very well. Not a whole lot of offensive firepower, but, with the matchups that the Bucks and the Rockets would have, I would end up giving the edge to the Bucks in this matchup, the Milwaukee Bucks, because the Rockets simply cannot guard Giannis. They don't have a player who can even contain him. They can try to build the wall. That's what a lot of teams are going to try to do for Giannis around the paint. However, I don't think the Rockets could get it done. I got the Bucks beating the Rockets. I don't have a game necessarily. Probably thinking about it, they probably win in 5 or 6. We'll see how they do late, but and how the calls went. But I have the Bucks having the edge over the Rockets. Nonetheless, a pretty interesting matchup there. Another one would be the Clippers and the Celtics, okay? Both teams match up very well this season, the Clippers and the Celtics. They split the season series 1 game apiece, and both games were very close. I know one went to double overtime, and I'm pretty sure another one went to overtime as well. Don't quote me on that, but I know one of them went to double OT. That's an intense game. There you have some very interesting matchups, and another interesting storyline could be, Doc Rivers, coach of the Clippers, against his old team, the Boston Celtics, a team he won a championship with, the only championship he's won as a head coach. So he, a team that he somewhat used to know very well, probably doesn't anymore, but nonetheless, he was in Boston for a long time. He has some ties there, and that would be a very interesting matchup. Doc and the Clippers against his old team, the Celtics. The Celtics, a very veteran savvy team, and the Celtics, a very young, up-and-coming team, but a team you don't want to underestimate, because that is a team, in my opinion, my dark horse, to win the finals could be the Boston Celtics. They shouldn't be a team that is underestimated by any means. Like I said, I've said this before, talking about Jason Tatum. Him and that Celtic team took LeBron and the Cavaliers to 7 games, something very tough, something Victor Oladipo and the Pacers also did. That's why I give Victor Oladipo such a big props, because that was such a hard thing to do. So the Celtics did that as well in their rookie seasons. Basically, they were all very young, didn't have the team they have now, didn't have half the pieces. So the matchups are very interesting. You got Kawhi, you got Jason Tatum, Paul George, Jaylen Brown, Kemba Walker, Lou Will, you got Gordon Hayward. It's a very interesting matchup. I think both teams are very deep, but I have to give the edge right now to the Clippers, just because of that roster, the firepower on that roster. I think it goes 6 or 7 games. Like I said, the matchups are very interesting, but veteran presence and the star power in Kawhi and Doc, I gotta give them the edge, but I don't want to underestimate them. I almost want to pick the Celtics, honestly, because they shouldn't be underestimated. It goes 6 or 7. I give the slight edge to the Clippers right now. We'll see how I feel going forward. But an interesting matchup. Another one, Lakers-Celtics. Historic matchup, right? Easily the most historic matchup possible. We saw this in the Kobe, Paul Pierce, KG days. We saw this in the Magic Larry Bird days. We saw this in the Wilt, Bill Russell days. So this is a rivalry that goes deep, that cuts deep. It's been around for a long time, but basically since the NBA's been around, this rivalry has basically been a thing. So that's a historic matchup, Lakers versus Celtics. Celtics have multiple defenders that can guard LeBron. Jay Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart's gritty. I don't think you can throw him at him, but they have multiple guys to throw at LeBron. Not an answer for Anthony Davis, though, which is the edge I give the Clippers, or the Lakers. I'm sorry. I give the edge to the Lakers because of Anthony Davis. The Celtics don't necessarily have an answer for him. They have guys like Cantor. Maybe you can throw Tatum on him for a bit, or Daniel Tice on him for a bit, but that's not going to stop Anthony Davis. So that's the edge I give to the Lakers, Anthony Davis. But the Celtics have a whole lot of young guards. They got scoring, and that's basically the opposite of what the Lakers have. They have veteran forwards that are scoring, so both are kind of the opposite. The Celtics still have a forward in Tatum. Whole lot of scoring, whole lot of defense, so yeah, I like the Celtics. I like the Lakers a lot, but similar to the Clippers, I give the edge to the Lakers here. I think it goes 6 or 7 games, very similar to that Clippers Celtics series, but I give the edge to the Lakers. But like I said, Celtics from an underdog team, don't want to underestimate them. Matchups are very interesting. Celtics have a better roster than the Lakers do, much more firepower. So it'd be very interesting if they can live up to the hype of that roster in the biggest stage possible. We'll see. A lot of guys that have not been there before. So like I said, Lakers get the edge there. Historic matchup, very interesting matchup. Might possibly be the matchup we see. Clippers, Raptors. Clippers against the Raptors, very interesting matchup as well. Okay, Kawhi gets to face off against the team he left last year in the Toronto Raptors, a team he led to an NBA championship. Obviously, Kawhi won the Finals MVP, but they both have something to prove if they did match up here. Okay, it doesn't just go. So I was popping my back there. It doesn't just go one side. It goes both sides. They both have something to prove. Toronto could prove Kawhi was not the only reason we got to the finals and we won the finals. We're a good team. We're still a good team, and we're going to compete. So that all right there is a whole lot to prove. That gives you a chip on your shoulder right away. They got players. They got ballers on their team. Matchups are very interesting. Kawhi can go out there and prove, yes, I was the reason you guys won the championship, and now since I'm gone, you guys aren't going to win one for a long time. So it goes both ways. I would love to see the Raptors kind of spite, in Kawhi's face and beat him. I would also like to see Kawhi beat the Raptors and prove he was the reason. So I go both ways with this series. I think it's just an interesting watch. It's an interesting matchup. Toronto's very deep, not as deep quite as the Clippers are. The Clippers have the edge because of the star power, all that firepower. The veteran experience on both sides of the court. But I give the edge to the Clippers. I think it goes 5, maybe 6, but Kawhi proves. I think Kawhi is the best player in the series. Paul George, arguably the next best player. We'll see how Siakam and Paul comes back, but I give the edge to the Clippers there. Nonetheless, a very intriguing storyline and matchup could go either way. Clippers and Bucks. Basically, Clippers against the Bucks. Basically, an Eastern Conference Finals rematch from last year. Okay, Giannis against Kawhi. Similar to the Kawhi against Toronto argument. It'd be Kawhi against Giannis. They could prove who is the best series or who's the better player. You heard me in my top 10 players. I do think Kawhi has the edge in large part to do with that Eastern Conference Finals last year, the matchup, and how they both played. But if Giannis can come out and play better than Kawhi, if Giannis in the Bucks can beat Kawhi and the Clippers, I think I have to give the edge to Giannis in the argument against him and Kawhi. But Kawhi can go out and prove that he was the reason, him and the Raptors beat the Bucks. It wasn't a fluke, and Kawhi's the better player. So they both have something to prove, I think. It'd be an interesting matchup. Clippers are the better team again. I give the edge to the Clippers because of the depth, because of all the firepower. Too much offense for that good defense. They have a defense to back it up as well. So I give the edge to the Clippers. Either way, interesting matchup. The last one I want to talk about, okay? Lakers and the Bucks. Two front runners for MVP are going to face off. LeBron against Giannis. That's one of the most interesting storylines right there, okay? They split the season series 1 apiece. Very competitive so far. It really depends. The games, both games so far have depended on the play of Giannis and the play of LeBron. In the first game, Giannis, someone had the edge on LeBron, had the better game. We saw him crown himself metaphorically and physically. We saw him, act like he put a crown on himself. So, Giannis played great. He beat the Lakers, had a career high 6 3-pointers, 5 or 6 3-pointers. So, props to Giannis in that first game. Second game, however, LeBron had the edge to Giannis, playing better than him. Him and the Lakers end up getting the edge. So, really is going to depend on the will of LeBron, the will of Giannis, who's going to outplay who. It's the king against the front runner for the crown, essentially. But I give the edge to LeBron and Anthony Davis over Giannis and Chris Middleton. This probably will be, I'm comfortable in saying this is going to be the matchup we're going to be seeing. Probably will happen. I wouldn't bet against this. And I think it will have an effect on the best player in the world conversation. Definitely will. Because, Giannis, a guy, like I said, chasing that crown. LeBron still having that crown, in my opinion. That series could very well have a great deal of effect on that conversation. So that's a whole nother conversation to have. Those are some of my most interesting storylines there. I do think the Lakers beat the Bucks, if I didn't say that already. Those are some of my most interesting matchups for this possible NBA Finals. Let me know what you guys think as well in the comments section. I'm going to take a quick break. Not too much left in the show. When I come back, I want to talk about, LeBron, his legacy, if this is really his last best chance at an NBA championship. So don't go anywhere. I'm going to discuss that next.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back, guys, to the final segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast. I'm still Casey Foreman. Like I said before the break, I want to talk about LeBron James, okay? Is this his last best chance at winning a championship, okay? There was an article out on Yahoo Sports, and people have been talking about it. I went and read the article myself. It had some good points. I don't want to knock it all the way. So, basically just says, this is his last best chance at winning a championship. Let me talk about some of the points. It says LeBron, of course, he's in his 17th NBA season. There's no arguing that. Yep, 17th NBA season. He has the third most minutes. He's about to surpass, it says he's about to surpass 60,000 minutes. Only, I believe, Kareem and Karl Malone have done that. LeBron's about to do that. He's behind those guys. So that's a whole lot of minutes on that body. 17th season next year will be his 18th season, putting even more minutes. I think this year I saw something that he's already played like 2,000 something minutes. So he's played a whole lot of minutes this year as well. He's putting a whole lot of toll on that body, but Lakers have been doing well. He's been sitting out a whole lot of fourth quarters. So, and he load managed a couple of games, so he's been doing pretty good. But either way, let's keep talking about it. He's 35. He'll be turning 36 this year at some point. He's not going backwards in age. We all know that. Okay, he's about to turn 36. Like I said, 17th season. Almost basically has the third most minutes in NBA history. Probably going to pass the next two above him. However, this season he did get 4 months of rest, something he never has ever done before. Thus, yes, possibly increasing his chances at winning a championship, maybe increasing his chances of staying healthy, maybe. I don't know. But maybe, yes, that's another pro for him, helping him going into this bubble. That's helping him for sure. For sure. But all players are getting that. But yes, all players, he's rested. That Laker team, they're rested. He has Anthony Davis, arguably one of the best teammates that he's ever had in his career. He's had Kyrie Irving. He's had Dwayne Wade, someone at the tail end of his career, Chris Bosh, Kevin Love. But I think Anthony Davis has a shot in that discussion. Not all time, but right now, at points in their careers, Kyrie's somewhat in his prime when he was, with LeBron, Dwayne Wade at the tail end. I think Anthony Davis is in his prime right now. So he's playing with an Anthony Davis in his prime, averaging 27 points, 9 rebounds, playing very well, arguably the defensive player of the year this year. So he's got that Robin to his Batman as well. The playing field is basically as level as it's ever been. When you're talking about the neutral playing ground in Orlando, no home games, no fans, it's pretty much even. The number one seed basically doesn't mean anything, almost screwing the Lakers of the hard work they've put in. Don't want to get into that right now. That's a topic of its own right there. But yeah, the number one seed for the Lakers means nothing. It's a neutral playing ground. So it's as open as ever for those 6 teams that I listed in my last segment. But LeBron is showing, but before I talk about how LeBron is showing no signs of slowing down, I skipped over a point. Last year, a big part, or people are, I'm going to defend LeBron in a second, just wait. But, last year, he suffered his first somewhat major injury, okay? And that had a lot of people doubting him. We saw him coming out, proving all the haters wrong. Somewhat, the washed king was the thing that was kind of trending for a while. So, yeah, we know people were somewhat lacking their faith in him, his play, what he was going to be able to do. He only played 55 games last year. He missed the most games he's ever missed. Still averaged 27 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. A great stat line for him and most people in this league, actually, but since he missed so much time and missed the postseason inevitably, that had the biggest effect of the, quote, failure of a season, quote. But, he had a rest when a lot of teams were playing in the postseason. This year, averaging 25 points, 10 assists, 8 rebounds, moving to the point guard position, basically. He's first, number 1 in assists, leading the league. He's number 1, him and the Lakers are number 1 in the Western Conference. So him, I'm not doubting LeBron by any means in my mind. The level of play is still there for LeBron. I'm not doubting him. I honestly see the same level of play. I don't see the lack of play in his 17th season. So in his 18th season, nothing really makes me think I'm going to see a whole lot of lesser play. So I have nothing but faith in LeBron and his play. What he's going to do next year in the coming years. He's still got a couple more years in Los Angeles. So I have nothing but faith in that. My only doubt, however, it's not in LeBron. It's in that Laker roster. That's the only doubt. A lot of their guys are going to be free agents next year. JaVale McGee, Rondo, Dwight Howard, Marcus Morris, Avery Bradley are all going to be free agents next year. That's an issue. Those are all key pieces to this Laker roster, key parts to the lineups, the rotations. Obviously, they're without Avery Bradley right now. Somewhat of a blow to them, losing the best defender for the guards and obviously the best guard on the team. So they're missing out on him. And this offseason, next season, they could be missing out on all of those guys I named. And there's really no cap space either. It's mainly all used on LeBron, Anthony Davis, Caldwell Pope, Green, and again, they're probably going to have to sign Anthony Davis this offseason, use a whole lot of that cap room for that. Going to have to get guys to come and sign for the minimum for a chance to win a championship like we saw this year. They're going to have to do the same thing again next year. Don't have, like I said, cap space to sign a big guy. And if you say they can make a big trade, maybe they can make a big trade. I don't want to rule that out. But who are they going to trade? If they were going to get a piece that's going to contribute, who are they going to trade for? Or who are they going to give up? Kuzma, we know the trade value definitely wasn't there this year when they were shopping him. Caruso, he doesn't really have any trade value. There's no picks left from the Anthony Davis trade, so they can't deal a whole bunch of first round picks for a player like we saw the Clippers doing. They already kind of did that with a whole lot of their players. So my doubt is not in LeBron. My doubt is only in that Laker roster, which he is tied to. He is probably going to have the Robin to his Batman, which is basically all he needs. He needs Anthony Davis. I have faith in both of those guys. I don't think this is the last chance. I think this is one of the last chances he has. But I don't think this is the last chance like the guy in this article said. I think that he's got a couple more runs in him at the least. And I'm not doubting, I'm not lacking any faith in LeBron and Anthony Davis. If they're together, I think they're contenders. I think they do need, however, to take advantage of this year. They don't need to, somewhat coast. I think they know what's in front of them. I think they will take advantage of it inevitably. I do have them winning the NBA Finals. If you have been listening to my podcast, I have them winning the Finals over the Clippers, over the Bucks. Okay, I have them winning it all, and it's because of LeBron James and Anthony Davis. I think they'll continue to do this in the coming years. So no, I disagree, and I think that this is not his last best chance. I think in the coming years, yes, it might get harder, but who knows what the Lakers might do. Who knows? Who are we to say this is his last chance? So I'm not ruling it out. I still think he's a couple more years, couple more runs in him to contend. So that's my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. That's going to be it for today's GSMC basketball podcast. Thank you all for the continued support. If you like today's podcast, like I've been saying, please leave us a review, a comment. We'd really appreciate that. Go check out our social media pages, I believe on Facebook and Twitter. I'll be posting multiple polls on there. I'd be happy to see your guys' opinions on what I've talked about. So please go check that stuff out. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the continued support here at GSMC. Like I said, that's it for today. We're getting closer and closer to the return of the NBA. Baseball is going to be sooner, but then we're getting closer and closer, guys. Don't worry, we're getting there. I'm going to be right back here next week here at GSMC. So, catch me here again next week. That's going to be it for today. I'll see you guys then.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.